WNBA star Sophie Cunningham just re-signed with the Indiana Fever. But before you celebrate, look at what she actually signed. 1 year, not 2, not 3, just 1 single year. And when you understand what Sophie's been building off the court, that 1-year deal tells you everything about what she really thinks about Herb Simon's Indiana Fever. Let's get into it. On Saturday, April 12th, just hours after the free agency window officially opened, the Fever announced they'd re-signed Sophie Cunningham. General manager Amber Cox called Sophie one of the best three-point shooters in the league and praised her infectious energy. Sophie dropped her signature line, "Let's get spicy." Sounds great, right? Here's what they're not telling you. Sophie Cunningham, coming off one of the best shooting seasons in the WNBA, could only be convinced to sign for 1 year because she's quietly built one of the most impressive off-court empires in women's basketball, and she's not about to let Herb Simon's franchise hold her hostage. Let's start with the broadcasting deal. Just 5 days before she re-signed, Sophie announced she's joining USA Sports, the Versant-owned network that spun off from NBC Universal, as a studio contributor for the 2026 WNBA season. And this isn't a small operation. USA Sports is carrying at least 50 WNBA games this year, including Wednesday night doubleheaders all season long, plus the entire playoffs and the finals. This is the league's biggest media deal in history, an 11-year commitment worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And Sophie Cunningham just walked through the door. She'll appear on studio shows and special segments alongside Elle Duncan, who left ESPN to anchor this coverage, Renee Montgomery, and Hall of Famer Tamika Catchings, all while still playing. The same model Draymond Green uses with TNT, the same one Caitlin Clark has with NBC, and the same path Candace Parker carved out at Turner Sports before going full-time broadcaster. Sophie's not just moonlighting, she's building her post-playing career on national television in real time before our eyes. Then there's the podcast. Show Me Something, it's co-hosted with West Wilson from Bravo's Summer House, has nearly 50,000 YouTube subscribers under Colin Cowherd's Volume Network. They drop episodes twice a week, mixing WNBA insider access with pop culture, dating stories, and unfiltered takes that keep going viral. Sophie defended Caitlin Clark on air and got headlines. She went after Skip Bayless and got more headlines. She even got fined by the WNBA for criticizing referees on the show. This isn't background noise. This is a media brand with real heat. And here's a detail most people missed. Dave Portnoy and Barstool Sports tried to sign the podcast before launch. Portnoy passed over exclusivity concerns. Sophie's media presence was already valuable enough that Barstool was at the table. And just in case you thought she was slowing down, Sports Illustrated announced Sophie as one of 3 athletes debuting in the 2026 swimsuit issue. This isn't someone dabbling. This is a full-scale brand operation. Broadcasting, podcasting, modeling, all while recovering from a torn MCL and negotiating her WNBA future. Now, here's where the Herb Simon problem comes in. Last season, Sophie Cunningham's salary with the Fever was $100,000. Let that sit for a second. 100 grand. In a league where the average NFL practice squad player makes 3 times that without ever stepping on a field. 100 grand for a Commissioner's Cup champion who became one of the most beloved players on the roster, arguably second only to Caitlin Clark herself. A woman who was building a media empire on the side that probably already out-earns her basketball contract. That's what Herb Simon's franchise thought she was worth. The 2026 WNBA Collective Bargaining Agreement is supposed to change things. Higher salaries, better revenue sharing negotiated by the WNBPA, but Sophie only signed for 1 year. She's keeping her options wide open. She doesn't want to be locked into a franchise where the ownership situation is uncertain. Because let's be real, Herb Simon is 90 years old. His succession plan has been a question mark for years. When Stephen Rails quietly appeared as a potential successor, it raised more questions than answers. Sophie, who's already played for a franchise that didn't invest in winning, isn't making that mistake again. She knows what that looks like. Sophie spent 6 seasons with the Phoenix Mercury after being drafted in 2019. She wasn't some role player in the desert. She fought her way into the starting lineup, earned her minutes, and helped carry Phoenix to the WNBA Finals in 2021. That Mercury squad had Diana Taurasi, Brittany Griner, Skylar Diggins-Smith, And Sophie held her own alongside all of them. She gave that franchise 6 years of her career, and in return, she got traded to Indiana before the 2025 season. That's the reality of women's basketball when ownership doesn't commit. And then she came to Indiana and immediately became the heartbeat of this team. In 30 games, she shot 43% from deep on real volume, third best in the entire league. She scored 13 points and pulled down 7 rebounds in the Commissioner's Cup title game, the first trophy this franchise had lifted in over a decade. Gainbridge Fieldhouse went crazy. The Fever faithful hadn't felt anything like that since Tamika Catchings was running the floor. Sophie was the one fans pointed to when they talked about toughness, about culture, about what this team was supposed to feel like. Then on August 17th in Connecticut, she tore her MCL, season over. Just like that, 7 months of rehab, 7 months of watching her teammates fight without her, knowing she should have been out there. Most players in that position slow down. They focus on recovery, stay quiet, wait their turn. Not Sophie. Through all of that, she launched the USA Sports deal. She kept the podcast going. She signed with Sports Illustrated. She didn't stop building, not for a single day. Even without Sophie, and with Caitlin Clark battling her own injuries, the Fever still went 24-20, third in the East. They upset Atlanta in the first round before falling to the Las Vegas Aces in 5 games. But everyone in Indiana knows the truth. This team's ceiling is higher with a healthy Sophie Cunningham on the floor. So she came back, but on her terms. The 1-year deal is leverage. If the Fever deliver a real championship run in 2026, if Stephanie White's coaching, the Caitlin Clark and Aliyah Boston core, and the returning pieces like Kelsey Mitchell, Lexi Hull, and Monique Billings actually translate into a finals appearance, then maybe Sophie extends, maybe she stays. But if it falls apart, if the injuries pile up again, if Simon's ownership group can't keep the core together, or worse, if the expansion draft picks apart this roster the way it gutted other franchises, Sophie Cunningham walks into the 2027 offseason as an unrestricted free agent with a broadcasting career, a media empire, and enough leverage to write her own ticket, whether that's on the court or behind the desk. That's not a player who got locked down. That's a player who locked the franchise into proving itself. And honestly, the smartest comparison here is Tamika Catchings. Not the playing style, the legacy play. Catchings spent her entire career in Indiana. She was drafted 2nd overall in 2001. She won 4 Olympic gold medals. She won the WNBA championship in 2012. And when she retired, she didn't disappear. She became the franchise's vice president of basketball operations. She's now part of the same USA Sports broadcast team, the same Versant network that Sophie just joined. The pipeline from player to media figure to franchise ambassador. It's right there. Sophie can see every step of it. The difference? Catchings committed to Indiana for life. Sophie Cunningham just committed for 12 months. That gap between loyalty and leverage tells you everything about what Herb Simon's Fever has become. A franchise that can't get its own stars to bet on the future. Sophie's back. And yes, it's going to be spicy. But don't confuse a 1-year deal with a vote of confidence. That contract isn't a commitment. It's a countdown clock. And when it hits 0, Sophie Cunningham will be just fine. The real question is whether the Indiana Fever can say the same.